All right, we're here with Jason Rouna from J Concepts, new 8 scale off-road European champion for tires. How has it been here at the Worlds for you guys? Now coming in with a much bigger European team and much bigger like presence in the European market as well.
I think obviously this is my third time to this track. It seems like I like the track more every time I come back. Like there's something about it. I like the elevation. I like how it looks. I think it's just a really good racing track. For me and my style of when I raced, I guess you could say, I love this style of track for my own style. Obviously, it's not traditionally what the racers from America are racing on right now. It's more of a 10 scale type of surface and I think driving style. The difference is it's so much larger. In 10 scale, we can't get going at that big of a speed, on this large of a track. In 10 scale, there are more indoors. So, personally, I love this track. Like if I was to race, this is the kind of track I would race on. I would prefer it over like the DNC or the Silver State for me, just because this is the style that I always wanted to be competitive on and do my best racing. And then as far as the European drivers in the market, obviously this year we tried to get a little bit better in that category because we knew we were coming back here. We knew we wanted to be better. The last time we were here, we were competitive, and in the end we kind of found something that worked. We didn't have for everybody, but we had such a limited amount of tires there, and Spencer was kind of left out in a situation, unfortunately, in the last chance qualifier. But Dakota got in and Mayfield was in, and they ran well in the main. And I think the tire worked, I'm not going to say perfectly, but it kept them in the hunt, I think. What we found in the end, it kept them in the mix. This time around, the track is kind of new. It's resurfaced, and I think Juan, who was a new driver for us this year, is more accustomed to what the track is doing, how it's progressing. He's comfortable on these style conditions, and he's right up there with the top guys doing well. And the Baldo brothers, they've kind of come along with J Concepts this year, and they did very well at the Euros. They were right there. Oscar made the main. Brian was one spot out, I think, and they had a great Euros. And we had a great Euros. That track kind of favored our tire, I think, there a little bit. We had, I think, a little bit of an advantage at that particular race, but we really had Juan there at the top, and he was able to kind of show that for us at that race. But here, we're a different situation. We're kind of a much different. It's a bigger track, I think, and I think you're running faster here than you are at any other location that we go to, because the size, the elevation, the level of grip. We used to call that you're turning on power. Like in the old days where like club tracks, they would make 180s everywhere where you could go in wide open, hit the brakes, pivot the car, go the other direction. In this, you have to be able to turn, high speed double apex turns. You have to navigate chicanes. You have to be able to miss, pipes that are, there's a straight line in there somewhere, but it's a small gap. You have to be able to turn at a really high speed and navigate these sections, and that's what makes this track different and unique, I think. And it's favoring drivers that either are on a style track like this all the time, or they're accustomed to it, or they like it, I guess, is the other thing. That's favoring some of the guys like Juan and the Baldo brothers for us. We've had guys like Joona Hatanen was so good in 10-scale racing over the years, kind of known for 10-scale racing. But I've kind of seen him doing so well. I mean, he was doing good here 2 years ago in 8-scale. I mean, he was battling, but he's been really coming up the last several practice runs. I know we've talked about it on the driver's stand a little bit, and I really kind of hope he can put together 10-minute runs because he has some good speed, and I think it would be nice to see him do really well. He kind of had a breakout year in 2019 when he was racing 10 scale in Slovakia, and then COVID, I think, kind of hurt some of his progress a little bit on the track, and I think it'd be nice to see him kind of get some of that form and recognition back for all the work he did when he was even younger. And I think so it'd be nice to see him kind of get in there and in the mix, and it'd be cool. I think he's at the right age, as a lot of these other guys in their early 20s seems to be pretty magical. And so I guess to say we're hoping some of our European drivers can do their thing. They can be competitive with whatever tire that we're using at that time. Right now we're using the harder A2 compound, A1 compound tires, which is kind of like our long wear, hard compound, abrasive track condition style tires. And so they're kind of showing some good signs for us in that condition. We expect the track to change at some point like it did in 2022. I think everyone's thinking it's going to happen sooner, but we don't know. We're just waiting, and you can't really go out on the track during racing to kind of mess with it, play with it, kind of get an idea of if you could change something. You can do it in the morning, but it's hard to do it during the day because the races, and they limit, you can't just walk on and off and anything. So there's going to be somebody that's going to go for it at some time during this race, and it's either going to work or it's not.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking, because at the Euros you said you had a really good shot, a really good tire there, and Ken has kind of dominated the event. So one thing is obviously the fact that now you have the amount of knowledge of these European surfaces you have is probably more than you'd ever had before coming to any of these races. And on top of that, you have had the chance to make some new compounds and get the clays to work. Are you kind of hoping you get to go to the clays, or do you think you can work with what you have now? Because I think the fact that Kanasi said he moved to A1s, he went significantly fast after that. Do you think you can now sort of work with both conditions? Or are you still thinking you have a little bit of an edge with the clays?
I hope we have some edge one way or another. I just don't know. I would like to think that we could, but at the same time, when you look back several years ago, or you look even to the Euros, Bruno, Ronafalk, and Ungaro, they were there in the main. They were fast. And so it would be nice to think if we could go to clay compound that it would be an advantage. But I think, and this is just a guess, I think it might help the American drivers more for some reason than I think it would even help our European drivers. I feel like the American drivers are almost waiting more for the track to change to come to them, and they've been waiting for that to happen. They've been prepared more for, I think, that to happen more so, and almost hoping that's the magic button for them is when they can switch tires, then they'll all of a sudden gain speed. So I think, at least I'm hoping for their sake that it does help them. I don't think it matters for the European guys. I think they're going to be fast no matter what, because they just look comfortable. It seems like no matter if it's David or if it's Canas or if it's Ungaro or Bruno, it seems like they can kind of run whatever, and they seem to be fast. And as long as they're on the right thing at the right time, they're going to be in the mix. And I think the guys from the U.S., I think that they would like it to settle down a little bit, so where they know they're running one tire, they're like, okay, this is what I can stick with. This is what I think is our best shot, and I think it'll give them a little more confidence and a little more speed to make up. They have a little bit of work to do there.
Yeah, that's a good point about the Americans. They have been struggling. The fastest American yesterday was Brian Lutz in 16th. What do you think? Do you think something's like clearly missing, or do you think the Americans are kind of like you said, waiting for the track to come to them, so they are not going too far out, not copying setups. You obviously follow a lot of American racing. We know that these guys are fast. We know that these guys can be competitive with the European guys. So what do you think is kind of pulling them back right now?
Well, one of the things I was thinking of, obviously seeing some of you guys' coverage and other people's coverage on the same kind of topic, I guess you would say. But one thing that I thought of this morning was that this is the Worlds. And I think that in my racing days, and even in the early 2000s, it was there was a more of an effort, I believe, to be better prepared for the Worlds than there is today. And I think that today they felt like their warm-up was in 2022 and they're coming to 2024 in racing. If you really want to take this serious and you really want to be competitive, I don't care if you're a European or you're American or whatever, wherever you're from, you have to put the time in on a condition and a track that's actually going to make sense for this. Because otherwise, it doesn't matter how talented Ryan Mayfield or Dakota Fend or these guys are, if you're coming in and you're not have that experience on that condition, you're not going to be able to be competitive. And what it does is it puts you in a corner. Is you're driving, maybe you think the track is going to change, maybe you're going to change tires, you're kind of waiting for that to happen, then you're a little slow. Well, maybe I don't want to change too much on my car and my setup because maybe it's going to change. And then they start panicking at the end saying, man, I'm not really getting that much better here. What's happening? And I think what would alleviate some of these things is if you had ran more on this kind of track. But it's a huge, today, we don't put that as much of a focus. The teams, I would say, in the old days, there was a warm-up race. We would do the warm-up. If there was any extra driving that could be done, it usually was done. And for instance, they're going to Thailand. I mean, that was a crazy track with the big bowl turns and the fences. And they went to a warm-up race. They tried to prepare. There was nobody that really, maybe Hara was probably the most experienced on that kind of a track, but others, it was a little more equal, I would say. But there was more effort, I think, put into being competitive for that single event. And today, I think there's so many events that you're constantly worried about, what's coming up next, and then you have only a small amount of time to prepare for that event. For instance, I've talked with Spencer a lot about this. He's trying to be competitive in 10 scale off-road on dirt, 10 scale off-road on carpet. He's trying to be competitive in the E classes. He's trying to be competitive in nitro, 8 scale buggy racing. And it's coming to be more of a realization that you can't do all those things and be the best. It's impossible to win in every single category on every single condition. Sure, you can be competitive in all of them and be one of the better guys, but if you want to win this, you want to win the 10 scale off-road worlds on dirt, or you want to win a 10 scale worlds on carpet, you better do a lot of racing in that category on that condition. Otherwise, you're just going to be another one of the guys out there trying to be in the top 20, right? There's a big difference between being in the top 20 and being able to win. And you can even see that here with the pace and the speed of guys. So to me, if you were going to have to do this over again and you weren't concerned about any of the other classes, and this was the only one that mattered, you would be here several times running and getting prepared and getting ready, getting the style down, getting the feel down, understanding maybe other tracks. And I think to be the best or the most successful, you have to put that kind of level of effort in. Otherwise, you're gonna constantly be thinking of you're in a corner and you're like having to fight for it every single step of the way, and you have to really rely on the last day or two that something kind of comes to you, something comes to the car, the tires, that comes together. And I think that's a little bit of what happened the last time we were here. Is it was a mad scramble. Right in the end, things came together for a couple of the Americans. They were competitive and they were right there in the final. But they're hoping for the same type of thing this time. That's really what they're hoping for, is that they catch up in the end, something comes together with all those factors that drive the speed, and then I think then they're competitive. They're like, okay, I gave it my all, I was close, but I didn't win. But if you want to win, or you want to be competitive from the get-go, you're going to have to take an event like this more seriously, and that comes at a cost, right? There's an expense for not only your teams, but there's an expense in your time, being away from something else or your family. So how much do you want? The person has to decide how much they want to dedicate to one event, and does it suit them, right? So it's like you think about a guy like a Spencer or a Dakota, or it's like, what makes the most sense for them to dedicate X amount of months to one event? It was easier in the old days. We could dedicate a lot more time to one event. It was important for Associated and Yokomo and the 90s to be the world champion, and it was important to them, and they would spend a lot of time being the world champion in that class. But there was only a handful of events that really had that kind of prestige. Now we have so many events. I mean, what do we got, another week or so, and there's another race in Madrid, right, Buggy Land. So pretty soon it's like, oh, forget all about this. It's about who wins that. And then it's like, for us at home, it's like, all right, then it's, something else. It's AMS. And it's like, everything happens so quickly now. It's about what you want to put your time into to have the best peak out result in. Otherwise, you risk kind of being another guy. And so I think that's the thing I've talked about with Spencer and other drivers, is you have to decide what you're going to do with your time, the money, the budget, and what works best with your family. And, in situations, guys with Mayfield who has a family and everything else, hey, I can't go live in Spain for 2 months and practice for the race. I have a family. Understandable, right? I know Dagani, he was a guy all the time. It's like, if you not have a family, just move to that country. He goes, live there for 2 months and practice. It's like, all right, well, that's easy to say if you don't have any of these things, and you can kind of do whatever you want. In a real life scenario, you have to manage those that time and your budget. And when somebody says at the end of the day, hey, we came to the Worlds, you spent 2.5-3 months preparing, you made 2 trips, it cost $15,000, but you got 5th place, then you have to wait, is that really worth it, right? Yeah. It's like, so it's tough. And I think in the old days where there was kind of like I would say, less races, more concentration on the ones with the biggest prestige, it was easy to say, if that cost $50,000 to be competitive in travel, in racers, and whatever, they just did whatever. Now people are a little more conscious because there's so many more manufacturers, there's so many more competitors, there's more specialists in each category than there ever has been, and you have to decide what's best for you. And I think that is, what we're kind of running into in general in this racing, and I think we'll see that, maybe next year we'll have a Worlds in Australia for 10 scale, and who wants to spend the most amount of time being ready, being prepared, trying to win that race. And traditionally that helps, that pays off, and it's not just about winning, it's about being competitive, right? Like, there's only one winner. You have to be at the right place at the right time. I was talking to Naoto yesterday. He won the first Worlds when he was 14. It's like, Cavalieri at 16, Spencer at 16, Ungaro, he was young, in 18. It's like, it has to come to you pretty early too, to be good at this. You kind of, like Paul, I would say, you either kind of have it or you don't. And these guys that have this early success kind of proves that you do kind of either have it or you don't at a young age. And there is a window of when you kind of are at your maximum abilities and your best support. You got to have the right product at the right time and time it with the right preparation, and you might win. Right?
Yeah, that's one thing, because I feel like in RC the World Championships are kind of like the Olympics for the athletes of the world, and it is truly that it happens once every other year, sorry, and it's like every time it's in a different continent. Right now it's a very peculiar situation because we're here twice in a row, so you're talking about the Americans, coming in, know really that much about practice beforehand. I think the last time was a warm-up. They are already at a much better place as they would have been, let's say we went to Brazil, because I don't think any of the Americans would have gone to the warm-up. Sure, that would have been new for everyone, so the advantage wouldn't have been on Europeans as much. But I think, yeah, that is the point you made about the preparation and so on. It has shifted a lot. The Europeans go to America, they go to a lot of these races. And also, Johan Carlos Canas, he drives one class only, that's 8 scale off-road. Ongaro, yeah, he does 10 scale, but he does only those big races. Yeah. His talent obviously allowed him to win last time out in America. But I think that's kind of what you said, because the RC scene, RC market is very different in these two continents. In America, you have to kind of do 10 scale and 8 scale if you want to be doing this for a profession. Mayfield obviously a special case, but he's done his 10 scale, he's a world champion. So that's all. I can vouch for that, and I think that's a point that some of these, especially American, but even some European races have to make. That do they want to always win? Do they want to be the best at what they do, or do they want to kind of do a little bit of everything, have a profession out of this? I think that's something that maybe we have to talk more about the podcast that with Keenan then. So what do you think, who do you think going to be the strongest American so far? I think everyone knows at the back of their head that Ryan Mayfield's not going to finish 20th at these Worlds. So what do you think about, I think last time out Fend and Mayfield was there, Fend even TQ'd rounds, and so what do you think about that? Who do you think is going to be the number one American coming into qualifying today?
Well, so yeah, when you look down the standings, I believe it was Ryan Lutz was the fastest. Then we had Filong was right behind him, and then I believe Ryan was one or two right behind them. Personally, I feel that Mayfield has a little more work to do this time around, because I think he was a little further behind to start for some reason. I think they're a little bit. I'm not going to say, and I think everybody is this way. You're a little bit stubborn on what you kind of want to do with the equipment, the setup, and you're also waiting, right? We talked about before. You're waiting on the track. You're waiting on these other things to happen. Is the track going to change? I'm going to change tires, and I think in the end, sometimes you have to kind of swallow your pride. Say, do we have a faster guy than me on our team? I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to try what he's doing. And I think that's the point that some of these drivers are at. Dakota doesn't have that luxury. He's the only guy. And I think last time around he was a little he had some great runs, like you said. But now we're running a different height tire. We're running bar tires as opposed to pin tires. Last time we were here, it seemed like the pin tires favored him a little bit more in his style at that time. He's going to have to adjust to this style a little bit sooner. I still think, in the end, I think it's going to be Ryan and Dakota that are going to come through with the top results. I do think we have others, though, that are going to be either in the conversation with them to be the fastest American or overtake them. We have a few other younger drivers that have they have a lot of experience. They have a lot of support. There really is no excuses, right? You have all these things now. You're right at the right age, the age where you can win. We already know there is an age range that you can get it done in, and so it's up to them. Can you put that pressure on yourself and respond to it the way that others have before them? So that's why Mayfield and Dakota and all these guys are still holding on, because they've been so good at basically just willing themselves into being competitive in the end. They say, whatever it's going to take, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put my car around this track for 10 minutes and I'm going to be competitive. And that's where that sort of your personality, you have to be a little bit stubborn with your personality. You have to be a little bit open-minded in the end with your setup. And then I think those guys kind of raise the level of their game, because they just, I think, in this, it doesn't last forever, but guys that just refuse to let it beat them, they eventually work their way up. And I think that's what I look for, are the guys that just have that mentality. Sometimes they're a little rough around the edges because they're like a little, maybe a little bit of an asshole. But you kind of have to be a little bit of an asshole sometimes to be good at stuff. You have to be confident. You have to be cocky. You have to get mad when you get beat. That's really kind of we get mad at people sometimes because they react. They are upset. They're frustrated. And you're like, you know what? These are the same people that you do want. Because you want them to care. You want them to be passionate about it. Because if you don't, and then do you really want it, right? So you gotta really want it. Obviously, we have quiet guys that do it too, but I'm guarantee you, inside their head, and they might not show it, but in their head, they're just as upset as the other guys. Whether it's Ryan Lutz or it's Ungaro or these guys, they might be quiet on the outside, but I guarantee you, in their head, they're just as frustrated and upset as these other guys. So, that's what I'm looking for. I still think those guys have something, because I don't think that they're not out of their window. I still think that they have something left, but I do think that it's time for some of these other younger racers from America. They have to step up. It's their opportunity also. They have the opportunities, they have the support. It's time for some of these guys that are in the age range of 16 to 21, it's time for them to show they have something too. The Brandon Roses, they can do something. They're fast. They're showing quick laps. They're getting in the 48s. They got speed.
Yeah, that's also like one cool thing about the Worlds is the race is so long. The race is kind of always a bit special. So like kind of Spencer did in 2015 in Yatabe, or maybe even, Ongara more established last time out in 10K Worlds. Or probably the best example from the 8K World is Cody King in 2010, where he kind of came out of nowhere. Not really necessarily out of nowhere, but came like he wasn't the favorite American going in. Yeah. So I think that's kind of the situation where a lot of these guys, even Fee, he's finished on the podium at the Nationals, really good at the recent times. Spencer obviously now struggling a bit, but he could come there. Yeah. And all of those guys. I wanted to ask you a bit about, because you have brought some new products here to the Worlds. Mm-hmm. So you have the Dirt Wave 2s, and then you have the double bars, as well as a new body shell. So tell a little bit about those, and are they kind of directed towards the European market, or have you just kind of realized that the need for new sort of bar tires exists?
Yeah, I think we started working on the Dirt Web 2 and the double bars. We worked on those starting before, when we thought the Worlds was going to be in Brazil. And I thought at the time, I said, we need to add some more options to that side of the lineup, because I think inevitably I felt like no matter what, we were going to be running bar style tires in 8 scale at the Worlds. So I'm like, let's start working on them. I'd say the double bars, the one that's more suited, I felt was more suited to European tracks. We did some different webbing, more of like what the other tires have, and even old tires, the X webbing on the inside, sidewall ribbing, the carcass thickness is a little different on the double bars. I would say that's more of our European bar tire at the moment. And so that, yeah, for sure. We started looking at this when we thought the Worlds was going to be in Brazil. We made these tires. We've already been running them throughout the year. Really, Juan probably has the most experience with them, because we don't really run a lot of bar tires in America. So, we sent them to Juan. He tried them and ran them at races like Montpellier and other races. He's experimenting. Obviously, for the Euros, he went to the Ellipse, which is an older tire that we have. But it was working well also. So, yeah, I'd say those products are definitely catered more to this market and this style track, and it's something that I think we're trying to make an effort to have those options available. I know obviously we've had some great drivers, Reno Savoya and David Ronnefolk. They've all used J Concepts in the past, and actually they've had a lot of success with it too. And but I think we made the Cosmos tire, which was really going to be, which was for David at the time, because his favorite tire was in that range. We made it a Cosmo, which was, but we didn't really start working on the carcass inside or changing it differently. But this time we went a little bit different with the inner carcass. And the funny part about the whole thing is we had a bar tire in 2009, I think, for 8 scale. So we've made a ton of them over the years. We had a bar code for 8 scale that was actually not symmetrical. Then we had dirt webs. We've had the ellipse. Now we have these two. So we actually have more bar tires in 8 scale than probably we probably have more than anybody. And we started having one before anybody. So that's what's kind of funny is, to me, back in those days, we had some tracks and some conditions where they were a little more hard packed, and at that time I was like, we need a bar tire for 8 scale, because we were running Roar Nationals and things where we were using, crossbows and crowbars and big pin tires on grooved up hard packed tracks, and I'm like, we need to have a bar tire. That's what we're running in 10 scale. It's a 10 scale surface, and it took a while for that to become accepted, I guess. And then, but it wasn't really until we started the surface evolution, I guess, in Europe, which is more towards a smooth, flat, condition, either treated with glue or oil or whatever you want to say it's treated with. Everyone does it a little different, I guess. But once they got to that condition, it's kind of a no-brainer to be on that kind of a tire, because you're no longer really in dirt. Yeah. It's just about compound, bar support, sidewalls, and then how you apply that to the car. So now it makes the most sense on that style track. Obviously, we're not going to go to Silver State or Dirt Nitro Challenge and run the bar tires anytime soon. But like I said before, I actually kind of like that style of racing, and I like those kind of tires. I think they're, it all comes from Brian Kinwald. I mean, he made the first bar tire by hand, and a lot of these tires are based off of him kind of wanting to make a tire inside out. That's where it came from. Even the inner ribbing today, the inner ribbing we have on the newest tires, the inner ribbing used, that's what was inside our 10 scale tires in the late 90s that he turned inside out and made up a BK bar. So that's where it all comes from, and and I think it's just from him getting bored and thinking there was a different way to do it. But it really it really did work, and I think there's other reasons I think it does and can work, but I think what he was able to do was he was able to do it kind of first. He kind of saw the need for something different, and he wanted to be different, and from there on out, I mean, we had the bar tire in 8 scale, Proline made one, AKA kind of came in a little bit differently. They made a little different style. Yeah. And I think those were the ones. And then all the ones that you're using now, I mean, to me, they're all kind of copies of the Proline one. I mean, essentially, like, Proline discontinued, I think, one of their the bar tire that everyone else copied, which is kind of interesting. And I think it's just, I don't know that it was necessarily on purpose. I think it was just like, oh, this one looks like it's the best or the easiest or whatever, and it kind of became the standard look. I don't know which one it was for them, Electron, but that's kind of what, Matrix and, even, Hot Race, and they're all resembling and coming from that tire. Ours were always a little bit different. The Dirt Web, which is a Kinwald tire, when he was alive, that was a tire. He took our Pressure Point tire, and which we had more pins, and we had that X bar in the center, and he cut one up, and he made a 2-wheel drive rear tire out of the kind of the overlapping X thing we had in the pressure points, and he made one, and then I kind of fixed it up in CAD basically and said, all right, we'll try this. And that's where then we did dirt webs for a while. Then we did the ellipse. The Proline had success with a tire, I think it was Electron or something, and then we made the ellipse, and a lot of people they didn't really choose to like ours so much. They liked the Proline one, which is fine, but that's kind of what's being used out here. And I think Proline actually discontinued at one point their bar tire, and there was like 3 or 4 versions of like their looking tire, but they didn't even make theirs anymore. I think Tater has one today, but a new one, but he's the only one.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because I think that we kind of gone full circle. We went from bar tires, and then on 10 scale, then bar tires on 8 scale, to then kind of pin tires only, and then back to bar tires. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting how we kind of going back and forth with it. I think I still want to ask about the body shells, because that's obviously a big part of J Concepts. The S15, probably the number one most copied body shell out there, but also probably the number one most used body shell out there. You have come out with a new one though. I think you call it the P2. So can you tell me, was it more so of a performance standpoint, or you just wanted to change it up a bit because the S15 kind of, maybe people are getting bored of it? Everyone's running it.
Yeah, I think it's that. One of the things that stuck out to me was Ryan said, when are we going to get a different body? I feel like I've been running this body my whole career. That's basically what he said. And I was like, maybe you're right. Maybe we should, for us, we were trying to take advantage of a successful body. In this business, you want to have something successful and you want to keep making it the same way, because if you keep changing it all the time, it's also not valuable to the company, because you never take advantage of the work you've put in to make one. So in this situation with the S15, we've been trying to take advantage of a successful body. We were fortunate enough that many years ago, David Ronafolk chose to run it in Vegas when he won, and Ungaro's used it twice to win the Worlds. So I think it became like, during that time period, okay, this is the kind of body you have to have on the 8 scale. This is the one that wins the world. So then you have the X-rays and everybody else basically make the same body for their kit, and it's like it kind of hurts. I mean, obviously it's not that we've never copied anything or sampled anything, but it hurts over time, because it's like they don't want to get the one. A customer might not want to get the one from us because they're like, oh well, so and so in France has the same body now, and I'll just get the one from them. And then it's kind of like, well, now the one that we have, the one that these guys use to win with, they can just get a copied version or whatever. So that makes it frustrating. So that makes a reason where we could try to make something different. Do we know if it's going to be better? We don't really know. We just make something. We try it on the track, because that's all that really matters. You can tell Ryan all day long, you have crazy bodies on your car, and you experiment with this a bunch, but you could tell him all day long that body is the best, it's the coolest, I've tried it, it works. If he puts it on, he's just like, this thing is terrible. And that's all that matters, right? Like, it doesn't matter if you say it's great or I say it's great. If he runs it and he says, I don't like this, it's ugly and it works bad, it's not hitting the car ever again. So then it's a bad move for us, right? So it's a combination of those two things. It's got to look pretty good, it's got to perform well, and it's got to be proven on the track. That's what the S15 is, right? So those three things is what makes it successful. So, to me, I've always wanted to make the P2 body for 8 scale, because I thought when we ran the Worlds in Thailand in 2010, we put a big rear fin on Mayfield's car for that race, because of, I thought it was going to be a neat feature to the body we had at the time. We never sold that body, and I was like, I'd kind of like to make one again. So we started there. It was kind of disappointing. We couldn't get the fin all the way through the engine now. The engines are either, they're closer to the center of the car than they were back then. The engines are different in position front to back. So we couldn't get exactly what we wanted with the P2 treatment. We ended up with a little stubby fin in the back, but I think it still gives it that kind of look. We got the the ramping, double step ramping thing in the back, which we've had on the 10 scale body, and we have the kind of a menacing cab on it. It's bigger. Spencer asked us to make more room in the cab because he wants to run the Kyosho size air filter. They feel like, especially I think with the Reds engines, the drivers like to use the largest air filter, so we're trying to make the room for that with the bigger cab, and be versatile to fit on different cars. We made that one specifically for the S-Works because we didn't have a kind of a ground-up body for the S-Works. We knew Juan was racing for us. We didn't have, he's been using one for another car of an S15 on his car. So we're like, let's make the start. We'll say Mayfield wants something different. I like the Punisher thing from 2010. We've had Spencer wants more clearance in the cab. You talk to Dakota. He's a little easier maybe to talk to about these things than the rest of the drivers. And he's just like, I'll try it. He doesn't really care. I'll try anything. So yeah, so that's what we're doing. We kind of, that was the process, and we're just like, ultimately, let's put it on the track. If it works, it catches on, and we have the look, the performance, to back it up, then maybe it becomes the new hot thing, and then we have to make them fit every car, which is the long part.
Yeah, that's good to hear from kind of your perspective, because you've been making bodies since, I don't know, 20 years, maybe 30 years?
20 years.
20 years, yeah. So you've been making bodies for a long time, and it's good to hear like the design process, and especially like working with a bigger team like yours. It must be kind of hard to please everyone.
Oh yeah, I mean, because everybody has a different idea of what the body actually does on the car, and obviously this is a thing maybe more for you and JQ, but what is it? Is there an actual performance to these bodies? Is it looks? Is it function? Is it what's fashionable at the time? I think it's a combination of all of it. I think it can't be way in left field and be successful, because I think it's an uphill battle. You have to dominate and you have to win with something very unusual for it to take off. For something that, if it's just the same as everything else, then you don't really stand out, right? Then it's just like, well, they got one too. If you're too far each direction, it's hard to really nail it, because you either have to just dominate, or it's people don't look at it. So I think that it's a combination. It does have to work. It does have to look good. It does have to have sort of an attitude or a personality. It's got to be a neat looking item. It's got to draw the attention of people. But ultimately, it has to have success. If you go out there and you're not TQing and you're not winning, nobody cares, right? This is a business of, like anything, is a performance thing. One day you're a hero, you're the greatest, everyone thinks it's the best. The next day, you could be nobody, right? That's how this is. So that's that. I think that's the mindset of developing some of these things. Is it is a careful process of evaluating all those things, and to me, I always enjoyed the bodies when I was a racer. I liked the look of the car. That was that's why we do the accessories, the bodies, wheels, and tires. I think the presentation, the look, the professionalism of showing a properly built and a cool looking car, I think goes a long way, and the body is a huge part of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think J-Con's probably right now the number one brand when it comes to body shells around the world. Mostly probably thanks to the S15, but obviously 10 scale is huge for you guys as well. Can you tell me some of the stuff you kind of have in the near the line in the future? What's going to happen with J Concepts? New stuff coming, or are you focused on 8 scale, 10 scale? What's kind of going to be your focus going forward from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we tried to gear up for this quite a bit with different things. There was still an unknown factor, but we tried to gear up for this quite a bit. So we have a lot of 8 scale items coming. Like we talked about, we've been showing some accessories and different pit related items, I guess you could say, the body, the different tires. We brought some different inserts here. So we really tried to have as much as we could, because I feel like it's a really good chance for us to do well here, to have a good showing. Like you said, it's great to be the winner, but even if you're in the podium or you're in contention, it's still it's very, it's just, I don't know what the right word is, but it's just satisfying, to be in the mix. Everybody wants to be the winner, but sometimes it happens, and then you're in the right place at the right time with the right product, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think the focus for this was all about this event, bringing as many good performing items as we can, trying to have things that people either mentioned to us before and say, hey, it would be kind of cool to do this, like we talked about with the body, whether it's Mayfield or Spencer or Juan doesn't really mention it, but I'm sure it'd be nice to have a direct fit S-Works body for his car. So we try to deliver on some of those things for the 8 scale market. And I think this is, 10 scale racer, my racing days, but I think this at the moment is, and obviously that you guys focus on it, but it's the most booming, it's the most, probably the biggest excitement market that we have in RC racing is this class. And I even think that e-buggy could be it too if it was properly put together. I think these cars, the size, the tracks, this is everything right now, I think. And that's not to say that 10 scale's not the biggest, but I think, we still do extremely well in 10 scale, maybe better in that market than we do even in 8 scale. But I think that you can see a lot of popularity and a lot of booming racers. It's drawing people in, I think, all over. And I think, so you have to pay attention to that. So that's what we're trying to do, is trying to be good in this class over and over again and show it here with the product at the World. So that, I guess that's the now. For later, it's really about being better in all the categories. We have a 10 scale. 10 scale is kind of almost reinventing itself all the time with different conditions, carpet, high-end indoor traction, slick racing. So that it's kind of reinventing itself, and we have to be better there. We have a good group of people that race 10 scale for us, and we have great racing events, and we have our series in the U.S. that we will be at a couple weeks after this. So then we kind of turn our attention to that and trying to make sure that we're doing the right things for the right cars in 10 scale. Is the B7 the hottest car? Is X-Ray kind of moving in? Is Schumacher? We have to pay attention to those things. And I think one thing that we've done this year is we've made an effort to say, hey, let's make sure we got the Schumacher cars covered with our best bodies, the X-Ray covered with our best bodies. Let's make sure that we have these other, I'm not going to say they're not upcoming, they've been around forever, but they're getting more popular in the USA and everywhere. And it's not just about the B7, it is about the Schumacher, it's about the X-Ray, it's about these other vehicles that are out there doing very well also. And I think for us that's a big concentration, is making sure that we have what is good for us available for all those cars. So whether it's the bodies, whether it's the specific turnbuckles, or whether it's the specific, we need to make sure it's for those vehicles. And sure, there's going to be the most popular one, but we want to make sure that we have the other ones covered also, because I think there is a growing sense that I think those brands are getting larger in the United States, and I think even in Europe they have already, it is more 50-50 now with the associated stuff. So we're trying to do that, and we're also working our entry level end. We're working our bashing side, because ultimately I started as with monster trucks in my backyard, and I like those items, and I think it's a good thing to have in our lineup, because I think we have people that know about those vehicles. They have passion for those vehicles in the company, and it makes sense for us to have good items for them, and it's different than this. So understanding it from other drivers and other enthusiasts' perspective is important, because what somebody cares about in this is different than what they care about in monster trucks, or really scale trucks, scale crawlers. Those are big markets in RC, and if we ignore them and we don't put a lot of effort into them, then we're kind of hurting ourselves.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing with you guys. You kind of do a bit of everything. We talked a bit about quite a lot here, and it was a good chat to have with you, Jason. I wish the best of luck to you guys here at the Worlds. Best luck to all the team guys and J Concepts. Do you have anything to add?
No, I just appreciate you guys. I mean, you've climbed up the ladder, with you and Lefty, and obviously you've done a lot of racing. I mean, you come here now, you're not racing. I mean, it's tough. It's hard to be a racer and come and not race anymore. So we appreciate you kind of transitioning to give all this information to people. It's not easy transitioning from going and doing it for yourself and trying to have that gratification on the track. Now you're kind of giving that insight to people on the internet, with your inside looks. And I think it's you're adding an element between you and Lefty, and Jake Hughes obviously involved to some extent, but you're adding an element to it that I think we haven't had in an in-person situation. It's easy to be at home and type stuff and just look at pictures, but you also, if you come there, I think you also add respect to the situation, because not everybody can be there and see it firsthand. You can look at it on the internet and make a comment, but if you're there and you're experiencing it in person, I think that's different. And you guys are doing that, and it's showing up, online. You guys are getting a lot of exposure too, and I appreciate you guys doing what you're doing. And that's really about it. We appreciate everybody watching and just trying to grow what we can do in this. We want more people to do it. That's the goal. So that's part of the media.
Thank you, Jason, for the kind words, and thank you for the interview.
Yep, absolutely. We'll see you soon.